Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gypsy Poet Radio. I'm the Gypsy Poet, and this evening we've got an amazing guest who I like to call the Master of Mastery. He is not only a recording artist, but he also enjoys doing work in the recording studio, and he does a lot of magic for people who not only enjoy music themselves, but also put out music for the world to hear. Please welcome the one, the only, and the absolutely fascinating Jukebox.
Hello, Jukebox. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Sophia. How are you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing great. And so we are back for another episode with more questions and some fascinating answers.
Yes, indeed. Here we find ourselves again.
Yes, we do. So let's get down to business here. We are talking so much about music, which is one of my favorite topics. So trust me, I can go from music to history to literature, you name it. Okay.
I'll take music for 1,000, Alex.
Wonderful. Yes, same here. Okay. Well, let's talk about something a little different this time. We're going to talk about traveling. Okay. You have traveled the world, and you've been to some beautiful and fascinating and just exotic places in this world. What places were the most amazing that you just had to have that feeling to stay?
Well, I guess I would have to say, hands down, it's Amsterdam. I lived in Amsterdam for 18 years. I had most of my music-based companies there for just about as long. Amsterdam for me is home. I wasn't born there, but I definitely have an affinity for the wonderful jam-packed culture fest available and the actual amount of it in one place. Having said that, I'm also quite partial to Prague. I had a Czech girlfriend who lived in Prague, and I would visit there a lot. I wrote an album over a 2-year period. I called it Praha. Praha is actually the Czech name for Prague in the Czech language. So, I love to play on words. But Prague is like the jewel of Europe. It's absolutely stunning, very old and original, spared by heavy artillery in the Second World War, and an amazing romantic village. I would say everybody should go to Prague once in their life, but Amsterdam still beats it for me. That's 100% for sure.
What did you enjoy about your travels?
I've enjoyed so much, but I'd have to say it was always the people I would meet. Even people that I couldn't verbally communicate with. Like, we've always found ways to understand each other, especially if you carried your pointed handbook. I don't know if you know what a pointed handbook is, but it's basically a small booklet that'll fit in an inside coat pocket, and it's got just about everything you could ever think of in picture form, so that if you're in a foreign country, you can just open the right page and point at it, literally.
I like that answer. What do you like best about playing with musicians from elsewhere, from all around the world?
Well, it's a funny thing about playing with musicians from other places in the world. Excuse me. I really like the diversity of talent and the modal and scale training people have taught or have taught themselves. It astounds me how pervasive the issue is throughout the world, and only when someone's exposed to something different, except for, of course, somebody that's a conservatory-trained musician. It happens all over the world, and most people are unaware of the possibilities in music theory knowledge, which right now isn't as necessary so much as it used to be back in Mozart's time. So I would definitely say it's the people, and it's the different modes and scales that people use throughout the world, which is what they have that they're accustomed to.
Understood. Yes, absolutely. Um, what instruments can you play?
Well, I'm going to stick with the guitar as my main instrument. But that's not to say that that was my first or my only instrument along my journey. When I was a kid, I was forced to take conservatory piano lessons for over 4 years. Now, I know that might be a little insulting to you because you are a conservatory piano teacher, but it actually mostly turned me off. But I did get the rudiments that helped me with my entire career as far as music theory, how to read music and whatnot. When I got into middle school, I picked up the bassoon to play. You know, everybody was going for this or that, the violin, and I picked bassoon because, well, specifically I wanted to work on the bass clef, and I thought the double reed, there's only two instruments that have a double reed. I thought the embouchure of a double reed instrument was a very interesting thing. Most people couldn't get a sound out of it, but I was able to. Eventually, I kind of got sick of the bassoon itself because the parts that you would play in any of the pieces any of the pieces that would be played in school was very limited. So I ended up going with the concert flute, and I played the flute for about 5 years until, you know, it was hard for me as a singer. I'm a singer first. To find somebody that played guitar or played piano that played the songs that I wanted to play, especially once I played the flute. And when you play the flute and sing, most people think the only thing you want to play or the only thing you know how to play is Jethro Tull, which, by the way, I did play a lot of Jethro Tull. But when I turned 18, I bought myself my first guitar, and I taught myself to play. I figured it was more like a cheater piano. Of course, a piano is a stringed instrument and all. Eventually, I dropped the flute, and I just played guitar to accompany my voice. And that was all I was ever looking for, someone who could play the songs that I sang and played flute on. But as I said, after I started playing guitar, after a couple of years, I dropped playing the flute. And that would be about all the instruments. But I consider myself a guitar player, and that's the only instrument that I play. If you sat me down in front of a piano, or if you gave me a proper B-flat flute or a bassoon, I would look at it like, what the heck am I supposed to do with this?
Understood. And my last question in this half of the interview is, how do you find time to play music while traveling? This is an interesting question.
Well, that is a great question. There's always time to play when you make the time and build it into your schedule. As a traveling musician, it doesn't matter where you are. You always have to make the time to play, or the show itself might seem rusty, and I would never want to get up on a stage and have the show seem rusty. What I personally used to do is I would hang out, from town to town. I'd hang out on the trains eating cars, and I'd grab a booth. Eventually, I got to know a lot of the people because the time that I would travel, I'd get myself a booth in the eating car, and I would order myself a breakfast and get coffees and have coffees keep coming, and I would always tip well to whoever was the server. And most Europeans don't tip, so I was given a little bit of leeway. So I would pull out my guitar, and I'd be sitting at my table or my booth, and I'd be practicing. I don't have to practice loud. I'd be practicing, and then if there was another patron, somebody on the train that came in and they wanted to hear a song, of course, how could I say no? So I would belt that song out because it would give me the ability to, just check out what voices I have for that moment. But I also can excuse me, but I can also rehearse without a guitar in my hand. I've been playing guitar for so many years now that it's really just an exercise. I can do it without the physical guitar in my hand. And the thing about sitting on the eating car is that it doesn't matter if you're quiet or you're loud. nobody ever minds hearing good live music, and I found that people are very accepting of a song that's well played, and I've always strived to do that even when I'm rehearsing or I'm just practicing, because I need to make sure that when I do it in the show, it sounds like the real thing.
Oh, awesome answer. Question number 6, do you yourself sing?
Do I sing?
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, it's what I was first when I was 7. I was a singer, or at least I believed I was a singer. I'm heavily into vocal arrangements and harmonies, and I do a lot of times in the recording studio when I would be producing or engineering or just managing and hanging around, and if we needed a part done, rather than sing the part over the talkback mic from the control room, I would just get into the box myself and sing the part. And it would either be left, or at least the person that was supposed to sing the part would have a reference that they could put into their ear and have them sing the part once they learned it. So, yes, I'm definitely a singer, and that's what I claim to be first, as a singer. And I play guitar to accompany my own voice for singing.
Okay, great answer. I want to let you know that I have one of your songs here called It's a Circle, and I want to play it for the audience. So I'm going to take a little bit of time so so everyone can have some example of what you do and how you do it. So I'm going to play this one first. Is there a story behind It's a Circle before I play it?
There's a bit of a story. I wrote the song in Amsterdam. And, you know, I do call myself a wordsmith. So this song itself, you know, I looked at the Buddhist type of It's a Circle, where everything comes back, like karma, right, for example. Everything comes back to you. So in this song, It's a Circle, for every line, the next line is the same words but in reverse, which has a completely different meaning. So in actuality, every 2 lines or every line is a song unto itself. So I'd like people to listen, give a good close listen to the lyrics. Some of the best lines I ever wrote is in this song right here, and I love this song.
Okay, let's go ahead and
I
hear
hope
it.
everybody enjoys it.
Yes, let's go for it.
Have to learn to mourn. You're only born to love, and once you love, you're born. You have to live for life. You have your life to live. You're given life for love, for what's in love to give. It's a circle spinning round. One day up, one day down. First a smile, and then a frown. Spinning circles all around. We die for what we steal, steal with what has died. We hide in what we give, and give of what we hide. We cry from what we feel, then feel for why we cry. We try in vain to heal, but here when left untried, spinning circles all around. First a smile, then a frown. One day up, and one day down. It's a circle spinning around. receive of God? Was God conceived in you? Would you do for your part what part of you won't do? Will you give all to love when all your love can't give? Should you live just a start, or should you start to live? It's a circle spinning round, one day up, one day down. First a smile, then a frown, spinning circles all around, spinning circles, spinning around. It's a circle all around. It's a circle spinning around.
Very fascinating work. Wow. That was amazing.
Well, thank you so much.
That really was profound lyrics that soar with the spirit and a sound that takes you away. That's why they call me the G. Yes.
And that's why they call me the Jukebox.
Yes. Very, very cool. Now, my next question. Who do you owe your music lessons to?
Who do I owe my music lessons to? That's an interesting question. Well, no teachers per se. I did mention that I did take conservatory, but I didn't, those teachers, it was just like cookie cutter type of production. But I've had many, many mentors throughout my career, and I'm still in touch with some of them 30 and 40 years later. So I would say that I owe my music lessons in life to mentors and other musicians that I've actually performed on the stage with.
Amazing. What kind of sound are you looking to create next?
Well, that's an excellent question. You probably noticed that there's only 2 guitars and 2 vocals on that song, It's a Circle, that we played.
Yeah.
And what I essentially use that sound for everything that I've been writing and making for over 25 years. I prefer to record my music with only 2 vocals and guitars because I find it most natural, and it can be more or less performed live anytime, anywhere, and it'll sound just like the original recording, of course, without the second part. I play both parts, both guitars and both vocals on most of my music. It also, it sounds like it's like I'm in the room with you when, because of the way that the miking techniques that I've learned, so that, if I was actually sitting in the room, it would be sounding exactly the same. It also, as a songwriter, I do lease a lot of songs out to a variety of bands and artists, and it allows the prospects or the producers or the record label to fill in what they want if they lease a song from me, because it's only the basic tune and still open to other people's ideas and styles and, what they hear into it. And if I lease a song, I give them creative license. I don't mind if they change the tempo, if they change this, if they change that. It doesn't matter to me because they're paying for the licensing. So I don't think I would change anything as to the recordings, the type of sound that I'm looking to create. I've got my sound, which is essentially the trilogy, me, myself, and I.
I love that. So I'm going to get to your next song, but before I do that, I want to ask what's the latest technology for creating music? I asked a similar question last night, but I wanted to rephrase that to see what do you know about the latest and freshest technology for musical creation?
Well, the latest and freshest technology is great. But I want to talk about the older technologies. You know, I am old school, and the older technologies for creating music, such as analog, is a dying breed. But it can never be allowed to completely die out. I mean, the depth, width, and breadth is achieved with an analog tape, preferably a 2-inch reel with a 16-track head on the deck. It's second to nothing. And unfortunately, it's way out of people's budgets today where it's available. It's hard to find it. I just closed down a recording studio in April that was an all-analog studio. I had that studio for 8 years. It was called Orange Recording Studios here in Toronto. I never advertised once. I ran 3 sessions a day for 7 years, plus I would be mastering in the middle of the night because that's when my preference is. And I would get work just because of the fact that I was an all-analog studio. And people didn't mind paying more because, like I said, you get such a sound to it, which is, it's the bomb. And don't get me wrong, today's technology is amazing. But I'm old school, and I've been fortunate enough to have worked extensively with analog for most of my career. But as far as the technologies today, the fact that just about anybody can just plug something into, let's say, GarageBand, they can plug in this and plug in that. They got 16 plugins on your input, and it automatically sets everything up on your computer. The technology is getting absolutely wonderful. The only issue that I take is that a lot of people misunderstand what some of the functions are for example, an audio engineer that's been through training, or a music producer that's worked with a wide variety of genres and bands and artists. These are all things that are very important in the whole process. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to stick with analog. I know I might have skirted the question, but that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Understandable. That's great because when I was in college, one of the first things that we learned was how to use analog.
Well, analog, like I said, you got the width, depth, and breadth, and there's so many tricks you can do with analog tape. But it is a dying breed, and even the tapes that I have, it's hard for me to. Well, now that I've sold my studio and all my gear, it's hard for me, if I want to go and record something, I have to go to certain special studios that have 2-inch reels. I have to bring my own 16-track head because that's the way I prefer it, because it makes the width of each track excuse me, much wider, and therefore you get more oomph. So, like I said, I don't think it answered the question the way you wanted it, but hey, I got to be me. Analog's the way to go, baby.
Yes, I understand. Totally understand. I totally agree with you. And you bring me to my last question was, is there a science to sound engineering? This I know because like I said, I studied this before. Yes, this is something that I closely study. Mhm.
Well, the quick answer is yes, but there's actually several sciences involved. The question is the whole show. Is basically a whole show. You'll have to have me back one day and we can discuss this topic only, because there's the science of sound, there's the science of engineering, there's the science of electronic engineering, there's the science of the gear and equipment and what each individual piece of gear does in the function. I mean, there's so many types of science involved that, like I said, it would be a whole show just to sit and yak about this. But needless to say, there is definitely STEM involved in recording studios and music recording. Of course, the M is for math, and that's the music part. T is for technology. E is for engineering, and the S is for science. So, I mean, you've got all four of the STEM disciplines in one recording or one recording studio, or in this case, to sound engineering.
Understood,
so
yeah.
It's a topic. I could go on literally, and I have gone on for hours and hours talking about this type of stuff because I find it so fascinating.
Oh, it is fascinating. Now, to close out the program, we got one-man band that I want to play for the end of the show.
Oh, one-man band. I love that song.
Yes. So, is there a short story behind this one before we end it?
Well, it's a play on words. It's because I'm a one-man band when I'm doing a solo show, but it's actually spelled one-man band, and band is two N's. Like, oh no, you can't come in here.
Yeah.
And the story is basically was written for a woman called Vivian, who I affectionately used to call Fifi, and I was living with Fifi in Amsterdam in a very small place, while at the same time I was living with another girl, Hadar, in a house in Amsterdam North. And Fifi had a boyfriend that came into town, and I ended up having to move out of the place that we were living so that he could stay there, but which is okay. But I mean, if you listen to the lyrics, you'll find out. Again, my songs are story songs, so I would say let's spin it before we run out of time.
Yeah, let's go for it. All right. This is the Gypsy Poet signing off, saying adieu for now, but I have to say, Jukebox, it's been a blast. I cannot wait to have you on tomorrow evening for your last interview on GPR. Thank you so much for joining me. And those of you listening in, if you want, yes, please feel free to stream me on iHeartRadio and various other platforms, as well as this one, which is blogtalkradio.com/gypsypoet. Thank you so much for calling in, and I hope that y'all enjoy this last song of the evening. Jukebox, much love to you, man. Thank you so much for calling in.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and I look forward to tomorrow, and we're going to talk about Bandemonium. This is the organization I'm involved with. And
awesome.
Now we have one-man band.
Yes, we do. This is the Gypsy Poet signing off, saying adieu for now with One Man Band.
Well, you pissed me off for the very last time, and I got a lot of things to say about the way you took the heart and soul I gave you, and you went to him and stashed him away. Well, I know we understood the arrangement, baby, and on that there ain't a thing to say. But it's bringing me down to see you run around town with a guy who really should be me. Well, I wasn't just a 5-week stand. What I am is just a one-man band. Who's one-man band? Who's one-man band? Well, I don't understand why you keep hanging around me when all you seem to want to do is complain. You see, I made it quite clear about the things I see. You still insist on playing your school games. You know I've been around once, a couple times before, and I've seen more things than I got to see. So I'm wondering why you try to make me cry when I only want to be your friend. Well, this tightrope's hanging on one strand. You just deny me like a one-man band. The one-man band. The one-man band. Well, I can't take any more of my own abuse. I'm so estranged and angered by the girls that I choose. I see a female smile and fall too easily. I'm just a victim of love, looking for company from a woman, not a girl, to share what's true. So I'm telling you now, as sure as I'm standing here, it's better off to love you from afar than near than price is payment on demand. The cost of living as a one-man band. And one-man band. A one-man band. Well, it's hard to live this life alone, even though I'm sane. I even know my mind is clearly the guilty one to blame. So it's judgment day in this game of love, and it's time I started facing the fact that you don't want me the way I see it could be. So it's time I started making some tracks. Well, I want you to know I had a really good time, but I'm leaving as soon as I can. 'Cause there's a woman out there who wants to be with me. Some are waiting for a special man. Well, sometimes I think my life isn't planned to serve a sentence to be one-man band as a one-man